I mean, you already got the shirts made. Look at you, man. You got the really nice looking lettuce coming out.
We got the opening day lettuce coming in, Blake.
Opening day.
Look at this. Look at this. Speaking of your boy Paul Skeens, we even got the rock. We got the rock we got the rock in the stew ready to go. It's never too far away in case I need like a stress ball, right? We just start grabbing that thing.
I don't know if you listen, you remember that scene in Wolf of Wall Street that says, if you show me a check stub for $80,000, I'll quit and come work for you. If you use that as a stress ball, I quit and I'm coming to work for you because that's highly impressive, my guy.
I think this guy would win before I would, but Blake, it's great to be on with you, man. Funny enough, I heard you talking about the transfer portal. We're starting to do some player breakdowns. You're going to start seeing some individual players, some underrated transfer portal additions from different teams. And I was actually putting together the thumbnail for one. Let your audience know over the next probably 2 days, we'll drop a video on CJ Daniels, the Liberty wide receiver. So looking forward to chopping it up. And again, your audience can look forward to that. We'll be talking a little LSU over the next 48 hours.
Your thoughts on CJ Daniels? Just don't give everything that you did, but maybe just one or two key things.
I mean, my early thoughts, he's an electric factory, right? He's a proven guy. I mean, you look at it, and what LSU is losing. I mean, I think he's an immediate impact contributor, right? I mean, I think LSU, I'm expecting big things offensively, right? I think they're going to, Garrett Nussmeier is going to be that guy under center. I don't worry about the changes at OC, obviously, right, with the offensive coordinator transition, but just from what I've seen from CJ Daniels, thought he really broke out last year. And, I think he's going to be a star, right? I mean, I think he's going to have the right guy throwing in the football, and he's got the speed, he's got the athleticism. So I think he could truly be the next great LSU wide receiver.
Well, it's good that you say that because it gives, Chris, you know this because you covered a team. Now that you're covering the SEC, it's a lot different. It's different when you say it because you're on here saying it. When I say it, they're like, that bitch-ass Homer Blake on here talking some more Homer shit. I'm glad you said it.
Well, and the good news is, too, Blake, it's like if he shines in that room, you're going to really know he's legit because there's talented bodies in there, right? It's not just one guy. It's not like he's coming in there, and I think everybody's looking around hoping he's going to be the savior. There's a bunch of 5 stars and 4 stars waiting in the wing that are ready to step up and are licking their chops, and they know the football is not going to be going to 8 anymore, right? Malik Neighbors isn't there, so – but I think CJ Daniels could definitely be that guy. I'm curious to see, is it going to be a true wide receiver one? Not necessarily like Neighbors was, because nobody's going to be Malik Neighbors, but is there going to be that one guy that emerges, or is it more, by committee or more spread out, if you will? Who's going to step up and be that wide receiver? It could be him. It could be him. So it's going to be a fun competition. But if he emerges, he's a legit dude.
Chris, I said this because nobody really has said anything about it. He's a top 10 guy in the portal that nobody's talked about because he's just another wide receiver at LSU. Is it going to pan out? He's from Liberty.
Nobody's talked about LSU in the portal because they've been spending time talking about Lane Kiffin, your favorite guy. I just heard you talking about the portal king himself, man.
I mean, well, first off, I'm going to get ripped alive about
what about all the pictures that all the LSU or the Ole Miss guys have been posting of Death Valley and of just all kinds of LSU. Well, I don't know, man. They're poking the bear. One win. They're poking the bear, Blake.
They're poking the bear. Well, let me tell you, and this is a good conversation I think me and you can have. Either we can do it now or whenever. But look, Chris, I think that football programs are moving into gaining front offices. What LSU did was they went and hired Ole Miss's chief of staff, the guy who, let's call it what it is, put a lot of their stuff together in the collective. All right, I know the Howard guy got all the money. Well, Austin Thomas made sure that the right people got all the money that they raised. That's why Lane Kiffin was being a little bit petty here. But listen, give him the money that he's asking for then, because LSU going to give it to him. I mean, what you think they're going to do? They just made the highest Blake Baker, the highest paid DC in the country. What do you think they were about to do?
And you saw that post to speak to your point, Blake, about these college coaches. They're becoming sort of the general managers and the front office guys. And I'm sure you saw Boston College's coach went from being a head coach to a DC in the NFL. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that because I think there's a lot of college coaches where maybe a guy like Lane Kiffin or a Kirby Smart or some of these young up and comers, they see it as like the game and they're hustling and they're like a young whippersnapper on Wall Street, right? They can't get enough of it. The 3-hour sleep nights and hitting that Wolf of Wall Street. I think some of these older veterans in the game, or just maybe some guys that aren't wired like that, are going to say, hey, if players are getting paid, I'm going to let a general manager, I'm going to let a front office deal with all the money side of it. I just want to coach ball. So I think that's just the beginning of that. But you saw Lane Kiffin, what was it, a week or so ago, when Ohio State, it was estimated they spent $13 million or $16 million, or Ryan Day, I think, had some comments of how much it took, how much they had spent in the portal. It was reported how much they had spent. And Lane Kiffin just reposts it, and people were saying he's talking trash. I'm like, he's not talking trash. He's sending a message to his people that this is how much it's going to take.
1,000%.
I can't believe Ole Miss has that money. That's, I mean, and maybe they don't, but they got it. They got something. They got something.
When you come down to Baton Rouge this year, you're probably, I would assume, will hit what they call I-55, and you'll go through Oxford and Batesville. Get off at the Oxford exit, go to 3 businesses, and you'll be like, I understand it now.
Fair enough. But
when you see the big building in Oxford that says FedEx, and their building does not look like everybody else's, be like, oh, that guy went. That's Ole Miss. Oh, okay. But
to the point though, we're talking LSU. I mean, the Bayou Bengals got some money to spend too now. You mentioned Blake Baker, making him the highest paid coordinator in college football. I know the SEC college football. 2.5.
2.5.
I mean, I think he's going to be worth every penny, man. I think the LSU defense, I know we talked about it, but I think they're going to look night and day different, man. It's like oil and water. It doesn't mix LSU and bad defense. It doesn't make any sense. So
it does not. And then they're mad today about the guy ripping a helmet off. And I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to me to see, and we got a long way to go before kickoff, but how LSU wins games in 2024, because
I agree with you.
We got so accustomed to every week the question, I felt like Blake was the same. It's like, all right, the offense is going to put up 50. Can the defense hold them to 49? That's what it felt like, right? So, but it's going to be a lot different vibe, I think, man. I think the defense, you're going to be counting them a lot more. I think, I still think the offense is going to be good, but you can't expect it to be as good as it was, I don't think, at least early on. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I would expect, that defense obviously has nowhere to go but up.
I agree, and look, we'll see. I mean, look, man, I just think from a culture aspect, they get better. I think that guys are going to want to. Chris, they still have a blue. I don't know how people dictate blue chip rate. They're still at number 4. Okay, maybe they didn't miss. Maybe they had a guy in there in the DC that just didn't work, and so we're going to have to find out pretty quickly. Let me get to your thoughts on this. Look, you cover the SEC. And I was listening to you, and I agree with you on a lot of things with Tennessee. What are your thoughts? Because I'm just like, dude, this is about to get wild.
Well, and think about this, Blake. So Tennessee and Virginia's legislatures are now going up against the NCAA. And right. The NCAA is already fighting a battle in regards to the transfer portal stuff. And I don't know exactly who that's against, but I heard I think it was Pete Nakos of On3 talking about this earlier. What a legend he is, by the way, all the portals. I don't know how he keeps up with it all. But anyways, heard him talking about it. And I agree with what he said too. And this kind of goes back to my overwhelming takeaway is the NCAA is a complete joke, right? I mean, that to me is it is right here front and center more than it's ever been. If they lose this, the Tennessee and Virginia
it's
against
over.
NCAA, it's over. They have no control. What's the point of the NCAA anymore? Like, there is none. They have no power. The NCAA has never been more powerless than they are right now. And it's just, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Like, guys are getting paid. It was supposed to be for one thing, but now it's for another thing. What are you going to do? Punish everybody, right? It's everybody's doing it to some degree. Everybody's doing something. And if you're not, you're dying as a program. If you're not, you're falling behind. So I just think my problem with it with the NCAA is they're kind of picking and choosing what cases to go after and who to punish and who to make an example of and if Tennessee wins this thing, man, again, I think the NCAA is just going to have so much egg on their face and even the little bit of people that take them seriously will fall out of grace with them. I don't think anybody's going to take them seriously anymore. I know I don't. I think college football needs a governing body, but they need a real governing body. Like they need a commissioner. They need somebody who knows what's going on. I mean, it was the NCAA who kind of opened this thing up with no guardrails and no rules. And then 4 years later, 5 years later, they're stunned that it hasn't gone well, right? I mean, it's just only the NCAA, man. Only the NCAA. The only thing the NCAA can do is put on March Madness and the College World Series. That's about it. So.
Let me throw you a curveball. As Skip Bertman, which me and you going to talk a little baseball here in a minute, curveball, okay, would say, I think the way that they're attacking it is wrong. Like, let me just throw this out there. I'm not the rule, law and order guy. Not me. Did they break a recruiting violation, though? Like, can we, if it's a level 3 recruiting violation, okay, hit them, be done with it. At least somebody enforced it. But, Chris, you know what the main question that I'm asking here is? Not at the NIL. Did the kid go on a private jet? Did they break a recruiting violation, which they're on probation? So is a bigger infraction. Am I crazy in just wanting to know? I'm not mad that the NCAA said, hey, we got knowledge. Kid was on a plane with a booster. We're investigating it. Okay. Am I crazy to want to know, though? Like, hey, did they break a recruiting violation?
I mean, Blake, I think you're not crazy at all. I think one of the biggest problems is we just have no transparency in any of this. We don't know for sure how much anybody's making. We don't know where it's coming from. I mean, it's just, and when you don't have transparency, things get really, really messy, no matter in any walk of life, right? And people are going to take advantage of the system, even when you do have transparency. So, to your point, I was reading something today. Tennessee had a loophole. They did. Well, that's the problem. People have to use loopholes and jump through hoops to make things happen that, maybe they shouldn't be doing. Or, there needs to be more transparency across the board. There needs to be contracts in place, I think. There needs to be things that are binding. I mean, again, man, I know you think of the same way, and I think of myself as a business owner. I think of what NIL, at least what I thought it was going to be when it first got rolled out. I don't even know if I want to say employee. The student athlete performs a service. The business pays him for said service. It is a mutually beneficial partnership, right? Like I've done 100%. Merchandise. I've done merchandise before. If I had a car dealership, if I had a liquor store, maybe not a liquor store, but if I had,
hell, I hope you do have a liquor store.
Hey, if you're 21, why not? Come on down, right? We'll get Stetson Bennett to be our first NIL money.
Too soon, dude. Too soon.
Hey, but so we're exchanging, right? We're exchanging hands. We're both getting value out of the deal. It's pay for play now, man. It's pay for play, and again, it's like whose line is it anyway, right? It's a game with made up numbers and figures, and we make up the rules as we go along.
Your last segment, Stetson Bennett, and whose line is it anyway? That was great. That was great.
I'm proud of that one. I feel pretty good about that one.
I mean, you got one guy who peed on a wall and told the cop, he goes, I'm Stetson Bennett. I'm just taking a piss. Hey,
like
bro, can we acknowledge one thing and why I love college sports more than the NFL? The two-time national champion winning quarterback knocked on a stranger's door to ask if he could go take a piss. That's better in and of itself. Like, I mean, come on, dude.
You don't get those. It's like, I mean, college football has turned into purely a business nearly, but it's just enough amateurism to where silly shit like that happens every now and then. You know what I mean? Wow. It's stuff that it's too serious in the NFL, right? And when bad things happen in the NFL, it's really bad. It's not really all that funny, but that's funny. I mean, college
football so great. Yeah. Because you know why? I was at college. I know that's some shit. Because, Chris, here's the truth. We had our school. We had a cemetery, believe it or not. And behind that were apartments. Every football and baseball player lived there. You know what was behind us? The bar rooms. So we would walk to the bar rooms, and I guarantee you on the way back, there was a lot of piss on grass, okay, on the walks back. All right. That's what makes college the experience. So,
and when you're a college athlete, you know, I was a D2 college athlete. And I felt like the man on campus. I can't imagine what these guys at these SEC schools and Power 5 schools, but especially SEC, like, I don't know how they handle it, man. I mean, you're truly a superstar. And so,
dude, they had to move Livy Dunn as an example. They had to start pulling her out of class and making her do on, like, LSU was forced to do online classes for her.
I believe that. She's that mega famous. Yeah.
Yeah, like had to go to the president of the university and say, listen, when I get on campus and I leave my apartment, I'm not trying to miss class. I'm getting stopped everywhere I go. You know, like, what do you want me to do? I mean, because I'd stop her, you know, like, hey, you know, I mean, who wouldn't? Paul Skeens surely did.
I was going to say, Blake, I will never forget I knew about Paul Skeens and Libby Dunn so long before everybody else because of you. So I appreciate that. That was the inside scoop of all inside scoops.
Oh, dude. We'll share it here. I sent you a photo when LSU was in Omaha of them two out eating dinner. And everybody, I was like, bruh, not only does he throw 102, Livy Dunn's his girlfriend. I mean, come on, dude. I mean, he's a man's man. He's my hero. It's the reason I got the autograph in here. Quick story. I walked up to him at the end of the season, and my son, Ben, loves Tommy Tanks. Could give two shits about anybody else other than Tommy Tanks, okay? And he always is just doing this. So Paul is like, well, why does he, you know, you want my autograph? I'm like, listen, man, I do. He wants Tommy. Okay. So we're like on side of the first base dugout. Okay. When they played Southeastern. And so Tommy Tanks is coming up to bat. My son, okay, because the media sits right behind home plate. I had my son with me, and his grandparents, who are season ticket holders, are literally on the first base line. He runs up to his grandmother, looks at Tanks, and goes, Homer. Okay. Dude hits a home run. I'm like, you can't make this up, dude. You can't in front of his grandparents. So that's the reason why my son, he does not want to play football, just baseball. Anyway, speaking of baseball, look, the season's almost here. Okay. I guess I'll make this very open-ended. Your thoughts on the SEC this year in baseball, dude? It's going to be another one of those years, dude. I really don't know who walks out on top. I really don't. What do you think?
And Blake, I'm dropping my predictions for the SEC on Friday, and I'm sure nobody will be pissed off. I'm sure everybody will agree, right? Dude, it's the league. I mean, dude, the league is as deep as it's ever been, right? I mean, you look at the D1 baseball top 25, 6 of the top 9 are in the SEC, right? 8 in the top 25. You know, I look at those first 3 at the top, 2, 3, 4 in Florida, Arkansas, LSU. I mean, we'll start with LSU, right? New world without Paul Skeens and Dylan Cruz, right? I could argue that Dylan Cruz is the much bigger loss. You think of his value over the what he spent 3 seasons in Baton Rouge, right?
Yeah.
3 seasons, yeah.
I don't
especially those last
you,
2, especially those last 2. You think of those last 2 seasons, and I mean what he did for LSU, what he meant in that lineup, and no Paul Skeens, but I think LSU is going to reload on the mound. I mean, I know we've talked. I think they're going to be deeper on the mound. I think they could be a lot more consistent in the bullpen. I think they need a couple of guys, you know, to take that next step. I think they need Thatcher Hurd to be a dude this year and carry over what he did in the College World Series. But I mean, I think the bullpen could be vastly better. And then of course, Tommy Tanks is Golden Spike's favorite. He's going to lead the lineup. He's going to be, you know, an All-American yet again in my mind. Hayden Travinsky in that lineup. Michael Braswell, the South Carolina transfer at shortstop. I think LSU got a really good one. Not saying he's going to hit 350 or anything, but I think he can be a solid 280, 285 hitter. Really good glove. Electric factory when it comes to just he's a lightning bolt kind of guy. He's a leader, clubhouse guy, a guy you want on your team. Florida's just power, man. They've got power arms. I mean, it's a Sully club. Good. They're going to have. They're a baseball factory. They're a pitching factory. Like every year, death taxes and Florida pitchers throwing 96 to 98. Like all of them. All of them. They just breed them down there. I do think Jack Caglione, it's a safe bet, but I think he's the best player in college baseball. I mean,
I agree.
He's a freakish player. What he can do, set the BB Core record for home runs last year. I think on the bump he could take a step forward. People don't realize last year he was coming off of Tommy John surgery the previous year, and when you come off TJ, you're very inconsistent, right? That can happen. He still had like a 4.4, 4.5 ERA in the SEC, which is really good. It's pretty good for POs, and he was doing it both. So, I think Florida's going to be legit. I wonder, is this the year of the Hog, man? It's crazy to me Arkansas hadn't won one. It's just, and I keep hearing, I've heard for years, Blake, that, Dave Van Horn, and they're going to get them one. I'm like, are they? I mean, we say that every year, and it's just like they've got one of the best teams on paper. And, this year, led by Hagen Smith, they've got one of the best pitching staffs in college baseball. It's shut down.
No doubt.
It's shut down. Kendall Diggs leading the lineup. I just think, can they hit enough is the big question for them. Same question I got with Vandy. Can they hit enough? They couldn't hit worth a lick last year. They got all the arms in the world. The D1 baseball guys, I've talked to a couple of them, they feel like they're going to be better swinging the stick, but I kind of need to see it. You look at the power numbers from last year, and they left some things to be desired. You know who the team is that I'm high on, Blake, that, nobody's really talking about as much. I love Tony Vitello. I think Tony Vitello is, like, if I'm starting a college baseball program, no disrespect to Jay Johnson, Portal King, like if I'm just looking at the different attributes I'm looking for in regards to personality, recruiter,
He's Lane Kiffin.
He's like the perfect fit for today's game. He's the perfect fit for it. So I think Tennessee, they're going to swing the hell out of the stick yet again. I think they could be a dark horse to win the SEC East because, of course, we still have divisions. Love Jace Lavalette at Texas A&M. I love the pick of a Braden Montgomery in the transfer portal, the two-way from Stanford. Blake, it speaks to like the world we live in, right? I was watching the highlights of Braden Montgomery, and last summer he was hitting a home run against A&M in the Stanford Regional, and now he's in their starting nine. So it's just
and
crazy.
the way that series ended. Remember the kid lost the pop fly.
Yes, crazy. So I think Braden Montgomery is going to be one of the best players in the SEC. And then of course you go to that next year of Alabama at 19. I'm just curious with Bama. You replace the entire coaching staff. Their head coach was at Maryland. Maryland, they haven't lost a Big Ten series since 2021. That's how good he was. Does the rest of the Big Ten play baseball? I don't really know, but that still sounds like a pretty impressive stat. So,
right.
Alabama's got arms. They've got power arms. Curious to see what they are with the new coach. With South Carolina, man, they've got one of the best lineups, I think, in the SEC. It's just, can they pitch? They don't really have, I think, that true dominant Friday night guy. They've got depth. They got a bunch of 2s and 3s. They don't have that shutdown dude, which that's typically the kind of guy you need to make a run to Omaha and make a run like LSU did last year when all the chips are down, you can turn to Paul Skeens and have him shove up somebody's rear end. So the rest of the SEC, and I'm going through a lot of teams, I know. I think Auburn is severely underrated.
Always is.
Every year they're not preseason ranked, and they're hosting a regional at the end of the year. I think it's more fun. It's funny, Blake. I feel like folks are really cautious to, we want to talk about. It's much more fun to talk about in the preseason. Everybody's going to be good, right? Everybody's 0-0. Like, in football, we much more lean into, hey, let's talk about the teams that are going to stink, right? I'm going to make a bold prediction. So I don't know why folks in baseball don't really want to do that, because I think it's because it's just so unpredictable, right? You never know. I'm really, really skeptical, admittedly, on Kentucky. I don't think Georgia's going to be very good. New coaching staff, Mizzou, new coaching staff. I don't expect a lot from those clubs. When you talk about teams that could disappoint, though,
Mississippi State.
Vandy. So the 2 Mississippi schools, for sure. I think the big question is which one of them, if not both, but which one of them is more likely for the turnaround. I actually like State if they can throw more strikes, and I love Dakota Jordan. But if they can throw strikes, I think Ole Miss, I don't know what to expect from Ole Miss. Bro, they're just so transfer heavy, and I feel like it's not the for sure fire transfers like Tommy Tanks and, Paul Skeens. You throw 100. That was a given. He was going to be really, really good. Maybe we didn't know he was going to be that good, but last year was so boring because it was LSU. I know they didn't necessarily go wire to wire, but it sure felt like it a lot of times. But, I'm skeptical of Ole Miss, man. I'm skeptical of Vandy, honestly. I just don't know if they're going to hit. And then the top three, our guys at 11.7, my buddies over there, they had a real bold prediction that Florida wouldn't even host a regional, which I think is bonkers. I think that's bonkers. I think those top three are going to be good. I don't think
their reasoning behind Florida?
They have not dropped that show yet, conveniently enough. So I don't know. I mean,
that's eye opening.
Here's what will happen. Here's what I can tell you will happen. Florida, you know what I can't wait for, and like I'll just be like, it's baseball season again. When Florida is up 15-9 against South Florida in a midweek or whoever it is,
oh god,
and they lose 16-15 because the bullpen blows it, then I'll be like, chef's kiss. It is baseball season. Doesn't even mean Florida's not good, but like Florida does that every year. They always lose these crazy midweeks. So, long story short, I know I rambled on there for a while, but the SEC is so damn good. There's so many teams. You're probably going to have 10 teams make a regional, right? I think there's a good chance 5 or 6 of those are hosting. And I mean, I think but it feels too easy to sit here right now and say, okay, Georgia and Mizzou are the 2 teams that missed the conference tournament. I mean, last year was Mississippi State and Ole Miss. So it's going to be a lot of fun, man, to see those teams battle it out. And I mean, I can't wait. I love college baseball, and I've always been centered around one team that'll cover the entire league and follow all these non-conference series, these midweeks, and of course SEC play. Man, there's just nothing like it. So I'm stoked, man. It's hard to make predictions for the SEC, man. But my big surprise will probably be I might go Tennessee winning the SEC East. I like Tennessee a lot.
Yeah, I could easily see that. They're gonna, look, Vitello's just. I mean, I like him.
If he's not your manager, you hate him. If he's not your manager, you hate him.
That's what I'm trying to say. But see, Stephen Perilou says Chris looks like Tony.
I'll take that.
It's the lettuce,
dude. And I'll tell you this: 2022, spring of 22, I went to Knoxville. The way those people love Tony V, I'll take that as a compliment. They love them some Tony V. They love them some Tony V.
They do. All right, Chris Phillips, SEC Unfiltered, man, you are always fantastic. Tell everybody where they can catch all the stuff that you're doing. Yeah,
Blake, I appreciate you having me on, man. It's always electric conversation. So anywhere you get your content, X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, we got constant daily YouTube content at SEC Unfiltered. The podcast as well, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. SEC Unfiltered also. And again, wherever you get your content, you can check us out there. So we're growing, man. We're expanding. It's not just me anymore. We got my good buddy Blaine Gilmer. We just brought him on the team. We got SECUnfiltered.com. We got tons of contributors, and we're growing out that side of things as well. Some different voices on the SECU team. But no, it's always a pleasure, man. And I cannot wait for opening day. Is LSU playing tonight, by the way, on the hardwood? Are they not playing?
No, they're not playing. They got a little bit of a break. They got, I think, a game Thursday and then a game Sunday.
Thursday, okay.
Yeah.
It's speaking of YouTube content, man. I heard you talking about the Arkansas basketball rumors. That's a video I'm going to be staying away from. No comment. No comment on that one. No comment. Don't come to me with answers. I don't have them.
Dude. All right. Only thing I'm going to say.
Nobody needs a good baseball season more than Hawk fans. My God, they've been through the ringer.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, look, football